Okay, so good day to all of you here with us today. So thank you for joining us today for this fourth lecture in our aviation lecture series. If you have joined us for a previous session, you'll know that my name is Kelvin. I'm from the Asia campus of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And with us today is Miss Kim-Chua. She's an instructor at the Asia campus, and she's also our director for the Office of Student Success. Well, the session today will be the fourth in a series of 6 lectures that's designed to break down the world of aviation into bite-sized pieces that are easily, understandable. So if you have yet to register yourself for the remaining sessions, you can still do so as we are keeping the registration open. So now, before we hand this over to Ms. Kim, we would just like to remind you of some guidelines for this session. Right, so when the speaker is presenting, please do keep your microphone on mute and to not interrupt the speaker. If you have any question that you'd like to ask, use the raise your hand function and wait for the speaker to give you the go ahead, and then you can proceed to ask your question. So after the presentation, you'll be able to ask some questions. We will help to answer any of the questions. If you have any specific questions about admissions, about our programs, we will be glad to stay on to actually share some of that with you. You can also contact us through our contact information here on the screen. Okay, send us an email if any questions you have, or give us a call. Okay, we'll be glad to speak to you on that. So if you have not done so, we are on social media. Everyone is nowadays. So you can follow us on our social media to get the latest news and updates about our activities and events. Right, so for now, I will just stop sharing and hand it over to Ms. Kim. Right, Kim, there you go.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me this evening, and I'm very, very pleased that we have such a great crowd for today. And it is my immense pleasure to present aviation through the lens of Hollywood, camera, lights, and action. So my name is Kim-Chua. I would like to reinforce some of the ground rules before we start. And that is, if you wish to speak, just use the raise hands function, and then we'll be happy to unmute you in the process. Okay, so I've tried to make this session very interactive. There will be a lot of chances for you to take part in the polls, and there will be a lot of chances for you to take part in discussions as well. So first of all, as I mentioned, thank you, Kelvin, for introducing me. My name is Kim-Chua. I'm faculty. I wear many hats. I have many lives. So one of my lives is being a faculty. I enjoy that most. By day, I teach the language and communication subjects in Embry-Riddle, Asia. I teach all the language communication classes, and I'm also a self-professed movie buff. I watch way too many movies, but and this session is really a chance for me to share with you some of my favorite movies ever. I'm also an aviation geek and a social scientist by training. So as a social scientist, I get a lot of questions all the time. People ask me, what do you actually do as a social scientist? So as a social scientist, I study all aspects of society, from past events and achievements to human behavior and relationship amongst various groups. So a large part of my work really involves looking at data, analyzing historical records, documents, even films. Okay, and interpreting the effects of on culture and other aspects of society. So today's session is really a discussion of how aviation has impacted movie making and vice versa. So this session, I really hope to share with you some of the dynamics between popular culture and aviation and how it has shaped our knowledge and understanding of the industry. Because if you really think about it, the history of the air age has mostly been written from the perspective of aircraft engineers, builders, pilots, and I wanted to do something quite differently for today's webinar. I thought, okay, since I love film, I'm in aviation, I'm a social scientist. Why not combine all three? And that's how I came up with today's subject matter. So before we start, I would like to take you along with me for a walk down memory lane and take you back to the 19th century, or otherwise known as the age of invention. If you think about it, two of the world's most wonderful inventions, movie making, aviation, they came of age around the same time. Well, that is around the turn of the 19th century and before World War I. There was already signs that a new age was coming. The Industrial Revolution was giving way to the technology revolution. New exciting inventions and new ways to manufacture them, new ways to introduce them to the public was springing up everywhere. This era was also the era whereby the Wright brothers took off. The first flight happened. And we also have Henry Ford with his production of the automobile. And also, this was also the time whereby the movie business was really gaining momentum as a full-fledged entertainment business. So, I have a quick question for the history buffs in this discussion, in this lecture this afternoon. And that is, which invention came first? Was it flight or was it the motion picture? What do you think? Please use the chat function. Could we activate the chat function for this discussion? Now, what do you think happened first? A, flight, B, motion picture. Right, thank you. Go ahead, pop in your answers. All right, I think we have about 20 responses. Let's try to hit 30 responses before I release the answer. All right, 30, okay, let's see. The overwhelming, I think there seems to be actually a draw between, I seem to have equal numbers for A, flight, and B, motion picture. Well, actually the correct answer is, drum roll please, motion picture. All right, so for those who picked motion picture, you're right. Motion picture came first and then followed by flight. So you must be thinking, how is that possible? Wait, hold on to the edge of your seat, because I'm going to share with you snippets of the very first motion picture ever made. So this was in the 1800s, so 1878, this was the first motion picture. So a guy called Edward Muybridge changed everything. He took a series of photographs of a horse, a jockey on a horse, using 12 cameras. So as the horse galloped, it tripped a series of wires. So you can imagine the scene, right? So he's on this horse, he's jockeying the horse, and there are 12 cameras. And in succession, as the horse galloped through the wires, each of the 12 camera was being triggered. And then what happened was that the images were then copied onto plates and animated by projecting them using his invention. So I'm going to show you what the very first motion picture actually looked like.
By definition, a motion picture is a series of pictures projected onto a screen, creating the illusion of movement. By the 1800s, humans had discovered photography, projection, and motion. We just hadn't put them together. Then, a guy called Edward Muybridge changed everything. He set up 24 cameras linked to tripwires to take photographs of a horse galloping. He developed and later projected the images onto a screen using his invention, the zoopraxiscope. The result was 2 seconds of movie history. Here it is, the first motion picture ever made. Get your popcorn.
those who picked motion picture, you're right. Okay, that happened in 1878. So the next, what I'm going to show you is the very first flight that happened. And you'll be watching footages of the first flight that took place on December 17, 1903, when Orville Wright piloted the very first airplane, right? And this happened, and this lasted just 12 seconds. So don't get too excited, it's only 12 seconds, and it covered 120 feet. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that short little clip. I forgot to mention it's silent, it's a silent movie. So since then, there have been many movies made about aviation. In fact, Howard Hughes once famously said, "I'm going to make the greatest aviation movie of all time." So you must be thinking, who is this Howard Hughes, right? So what was the context of that statement? So Howard Hughes passed away in 1976. He is a very famous American businessman, pilot, engineer, film director, and philanthropist. He's known during his lifetime by his peers and contemporaries as one of the most financially successful individuals. He was also very, very prominent for two things. First, as a film producer, and also as a very influential figure in the aviation industry at that time. In fact, most people would credit Howard Hughes as an instrumental figure in the growth of two great American industries in their formative years, aviation and Hollywood. So, what is an aviation movie, right? So that's what he wanted to do. So what is an aviation movie? So for the purpose of today's lecture, I would define and refer to an aviation movie as films, videos that generally revolve around the main characters flying an aircraft as part of civilian or military aviation. I can almost imagine some of you already trying to recall some of the famous aviation movies that you grew up with, but hold on to that, okay? Hold on to that. So I'm going to start with some aviation movie trivia. And being a language and communication professor, I'm obsessed with speech. I'm obsessed with words. So who said that? Let's see if you can guess who said these lines from my top 3 favorite all-time aviation movies. Can we unmute the chat? Sorry, can we actually enable the chat function so that participants can go ahead to pop in their answers? So those who know this quote, please pop in the name of the movie of this quote and the year. So who said that? Who said that and which movie it was? Okay, some answers are coming through. I think it, okay, pretty good. All right, okay, we can stop there. Or we can end the chat for now. All right, so let's see. Let's see if you guys get it right.
Hey, Mavericks. Yeah. Hear about ice? What's that? You want another one? Really? Yeah. I feel the need for speed.
Ow! Okay, too easy. I think most of you got it right. Okay, so let's go for the next one. All right. So this is a very, very long quote, but I'm going to say it in a very dramatic fashion so that you get the gist of it. The FAA and the NTSB took 10 pilots, placed them in simulators, recreated the events that led to these planes falling out of the sky. Do you know how many of them were able to safely land the planes? Not one. Every pilot crashed the aircraft, killed everybody on board. You were the only one who could do it. So who said that? Let's see what the responses. It's interesting that everybody mentioned Sully. That's interesting. I'm going to have to disappoint most of you. It is not from the movie Sully. It's actually from the movie Flight. If you don't believe me, look out for it. I didn't share the clip simply because there were too many profanities in that particular segment. All right, one last one. Now this should be tricky. This is the captain, brace for impact. So who said that? This should be easy. All right, sweet, most of you got this right. You guys mentioned Sully, you're right. So can I request that my team member share the Padlet poll? So you should see a link that has been shared. Could you please go to that link right now? All right. And I would like you to do this for me. So when you get to the Padlet, you need to pick only one. So are you seeing, you should be led to this page. On this page, you have 20 aviation movies, all right? Now, all I need you to do is pick one. Please pick only one movie that you really like, your all-time favorite, only one. Please do not pick more than one because that will skew the poll results. All right, there are 54 participants. I should get 54 votes. All right, please take the next few minutes, couple of minutes to review the list that I've curated for you. And I will share this page in a bit. So that's coming through. We've got a few. Right, okay. So far, it seems like Captain Marvel is leading. No, sorry, I take it back. Sully is leading. Yeah, so far it looks like Captain Sully is leading the poll, right? That's interesting. And a close second would be Captain Marvel and Catch Me If You Can. That's a very interesting phenomenon. And then in third place, we have Top Gun. All right. Okay, I'm sure that some of you have not actually cast your vote. So if you could cast the vote, I'll come back to this in a bit. All right, so this will be happening live in a bit. So let me just go back to a new share. All right, so thank you so much. You should have cast your vote. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so can we launch the poll now? Yep, okay. So I have a new poll for you. You should be seeing this on your screen. And that is, how many of these movies have you actually seen? All right, okay, I think we can end the poll. Right, so an overwhelming, well, I think an overwhelming percentage of you, of the audience here picked 6 to 10. I've watched all 20 actually. So yeah, just a piece of information that might be useful to you. And 38% of you have actually seen less than 5 of this. It's actually quite interesting. All right. So this is the results of the poll that was just done. So thank you for taking part in the poll. I think it's interesting to always try to get some kind of baseline from my audience, or because we're also different, our preferences, our taste in movies. So let's go on to, so most of you mentioned 6 to 10, and a good group of you actually mentioned less than 5, which surprises me actually. Some of these movies are actually fairly recent. Another poll, so can we launch the second poll? And this poll is really quite important because I'm really quite interested to find out what, in your opinion, is the most important feature of a movie. All right, let's not talk about aviation movie, but of a movie in particular. You don't get a prize for picking the correct option. I think this is really not a right, wrong kind of question, but it's really a way to find out what is it that matters most to you as an audience and as a millennial, right? What matters most to you, and what you would consider to be the key criteria of a good movie. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, please only pick one option. Okay, I think we can end the poll now. Oh, 50, fantastic. So, well, it seems like, can we share the results? Awesome, thank you. So it seems like an overwhelming, a very good group of you mentioned that script is so important. In fact, 58%, and then followed by acting, and then character development, props, sounds, and special effects. Well, I find this quite interesting and quite telling. So a lot of you actually value good acting and a good script, right? All right, so, but let's hear it from expert view. All right, so what I have here is the elements of a great film.
Every film starts with the seed of an idea. It's anything from a location to a line of dialogue. But to develop this idea into a good film, we need 3 main things. Number 1, experiences. Every film we've watched, every person we know, every conflict we've been through is all part of the inspiration that feeds into the film. Number 2 is money. And to get a project going these days, it really doesn't take much. But we're still missing something absolutely vital, and that's effort.
which is needed throughout the entire production. The second we stop working hard on the film, all progress is put on hold. On the flip side, it's amazing how far a hard worker can go, even if they have very little experience and barely any money. Let's get specific. You'd be hard-pressed to find good fiction that doesn't involve conflict, which is when things go wrong and people disagree. My favourite scripts have dialogue that gives us an idea about the characters and the story, but in a really natural and authentic way. People rarely say exactly what they're thinking. And of course, we need the plot, an order of events that takes us from A to B. It could be complicated and unpredictable, or really simple and subtle. Along the way, there's the subtext, the deeper meaning behind the plot. Some films are complex political allegories, and others have a simple message about relationships. Now, we could probably condense most great characters into having two things, desires and flaws. The child who desires to impress their parent, but keeps on failing. The hero who fights for justice, but sometimes goes too far. Their desires provide a reason for their actions, and their flaws make them relatable and often lead them into conflicts. The best characters are nuanced, and a lot of that comes from the actor who plays them, how they show their emotion at different points, including how they react to other actors. Believability is important too. Without it, the illusion of a real story is lost. The best actors use their body language, face expressions, and timing to bring the whole character to life. But timing is not just for actors. The order of key plot points and character moments is vital. Just watch City of God for a great example of a story that's not told chronologically. The pace of each scene matters too. The simplest examples are things happening fast for more energy in a scene, and drawing things out slow in a moment of tension. And we're always introducing and concluding, setting up and paying off. That's structure. Next up is sound, and within it, the ambience background noise that immerses us in the location. The sound of driving rain or a loud cafe. Foley and sound effects are further building blocks that really help us to feel like we're there in the moment. And then there's dialogue, which we've already looked at, and of course music, which helps to contribute to the vibe, the style, the pace, and the mood of the film. And then there's the visuals, how we move the camera, how we choose to position it, and the lenses we use. Lighting is also part of the aesthetics, from dark, contrasty looks to beautiful, soft images, and everything in between. Equally important are the locations, costumes, and props, which tell us so much about the time period and the setting, but also affect the colours and the overall vibe of the scene. But at the core of it all is the story. It's where everything in the film comes from. It feeds into and unites all of these individual techniques. Without the story at the centre, they're just a pile of separate ideas. So it's up to the filmmakers how we use all of these different elements. Some stories lend themselves to focusing on character and dialogue, while others are more about the experience, the overall tone. But deeper than that, we should remember that every film has unique influences. You give 3 different filmmakers the same idea, and they'll all interpret it in completely different ways because of where they were born, what kind of art they like, and what kind of life they've had. So let's not worry about making good.
So I think that it's quite an interesting description of what makes a great film. So in the context of an aviation movie, how would aircraft fit into this whole structure of things? Would it fit into aspects of visuals, or would it fit into aspects of sound, or would it fit into aspects like special effects, or would it fit into aspects like character? I know it's a strange question, but it's a legit question. So in the chat, can we activate the chat? This is something that I'm interested to find out. So where do you think aircraft, the use of aircraft or area scenes, right, fit into the elements that makes a great film? Where does it fall into? I see a couple of responses coming through. I would like to have your response. I can't seem to be able to. All right, here we go. Literally everything, story, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Interesting. How it fits into realism, mostly. So I find it quite interesting. A lot of you feel that it fits into the story or the plot. Okay, thank you so much. All right. Thanks for staying with me. We are halfway through the talk. I would like to have a quick 1 minute to 2 minutes break while I get ready for the second half of the talk, which is looking at themes in movies and also how these themes are being fleshed out. So I would urge you to take a quick 1 minute break and come back because I've got a lot of things waiting for you. Awesome. All right, guys, I hope you're back from your break. So we're going to proceed. All right, so I hope you had a quick break because I had to set up the second part of this evening's lecture. So we're gonna, as promised, before the quick break, I mentioned that we'll be looking at common aviation themes that we see in the movies these days. So you might be thinking, what are themes, right? So often you will hear people complain that it feels like they've seen the same movie 100 times, except that it's with different actors, new title, but it's really same, right? Well, it's partially true. Most movies do tell the same story over and over again. Few movies differentiate themselves by creating, a completely different storyline. So what is a theme? So a theme is a message which serves as a staple to the underlying plots of most films. The most common themes in films very often describe or portray the current opinion of the day. It could be something about society, it could be about human nature, or it could be about public life in general. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to request that my team members allow the chat function. And maybe what you could do for me is, could you perhaps pop in, okay, your contribution in the chat box and name as many themes as you can possibly find in aviation movies. What do you think they are? All right, so I just like to hear from some of you. What are some of the themes that you can find in aviation movies? Okay, I've got a couple of responses. Thank you. They're coming through quite quickly. So let's have a quick look at what some of you have shared. Hero, biography, test flights, hijack, accidents, incidents, history, wars, flying to meet loved ones, accomplishments, technology. These are fantastic. Responses. So thank you so much. All right. Thank you for being such a great audience. Okay, I have one last one, but I'll come back to you in a bit. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Right. So they really fall into 5 main categories. We have films about aviators, we have films about wars, all right, accidents, incidents, terrorism, and even films made on location at airports, right? All right, so fantastic. What I'm going to do right now is I am going to play a couple of clips, okay? Once I have played the clip, what I'm going to do is I am going to invite my colleague to launch a poll, all right? But let me play the clip first. Okay, this first clip that you're going to watch, it's a historical film. Well, it's not very historically accurate, but I guess it would have to do for now. All right. Awesome. Okay. We've seen enough. Vanessa, could you launch the poll? This is poll 3. Yeah, that's right. So what you just saw was a clip from Pearl Harbor. Which theme is being represented? All right, I think we can end the poll and we can share the results. Thank you, fantastic. Yeah, that's right. So about approximately 60% of the audience here have correctly picked patriotism. All right. So Now, I think that some of you might have confused that with terrorism, and I'm going to show you the next clip, and you can decide for yourself what is the overwhelming theme in this movie, all right?
I hate flying. The lines, the crowds, the delays.
I always kind of liked it. 6 hours, one seat, nobody can get to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard our non-stop service from New York to London.
You fly much?
All the time, actually. This flight is threatening to kill someone every 20 minutes unless $150 million is transferred to this account number.
We're midway across the Atlantic. How do you kill someone in a crowded plane and get away with it?
All right. Can we launch poll 4? I think we can end the poll. Yeah, that's right. So a lot of you correctly picked freedom, personal freedom and safety. That was one of the more overwhelming theme that showed up. All right. So you've seen that themes are really quite easy to pick up, isn't it? So I have a few more clips, and I think some of them do not need introduction, quite frankly. I think most of you would already know this one by now. So let me just quickly share my screen.
I'm gonna send you up against the best.
Yes, sir.
You two characters are going to Top Gun.
I feel the need for speed.
For 5 weeks, you're gonna fly against the best fighter pilots in the world.
You guys really are cowboys.
I don't like you because you're unsafe.
That's right.
I am dangerous.
The wild card. Flies by the seat of his pants.
I guess when I see something, I go right after it.
It takes a lot more than just fancy flying.
Film in this school is about combat. There are no points for second place. You figured it out yet? What's that?
All right, can we launch poll 5? Thank you. Okay, I think we can end the poll and we can share the results. Thank you. Right, so as you can see, most of you got it right. It is ambition. And I particularly want to highlight the impact that Top Gun had on the public, right? So Tom Cruise, I mean, we all know that he is Maverick, and he gets accepted into Top Gun. It's the Navy fighter weapons school. And then he's doing this because he wants to protect the memory of his father, who made critical errors during a mission many years ago. So it is very interesting. It's very interesting to note that when Top Gun was released, two things actually happened that clearly showed the impact that aviation movies had on the public and how it shaped behavior. Firstly, the impact on retail and merchandise. So at the time of release, Top Gun in 1986 was the top selling video cassette in movie history ever. All right. And alongside with it, you also see the sales of bomber jackets, Ray-Bans, that just shot through the roof. People wanted to look like Tom Cruise. People wanted to look like Maverick. And the second impact was on Navy and Air Force recruitment. It was hilarious, but back then in the late 1980s, the US Navy and Air Force reported a surge in recruitment. And it was even hilarious to note that at that time, the Navy actually added recruitment booths in various theaters to take advantage of the movie's popularity. All right. So what seemed to be the overwhelming message then was that people saw the movie and they said, "Wow, I want to be a pilot." Right. In fact, the United States Navy stated that after the release of the movie, the number of young men who enlisted, and being very specific, wanting to be naval aviators, went up by 500%. So I think that's the kind of impact that you're seeing. All right, I have one last clip to share. All right. Earlier on, I mentioned this man, Howard Hughes, and this is really a film based on his life.
Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Hughes.
I care very much about aviation. Fastest man on the planet.
Oh, marvelous.
He saw the future.
I'm not gonna believe this. Howard Hughes has bought TWA.
Let's build a plane that flies above the weather.
Across the country, across the world.
If you do that, you could lose everything.
Well, I won't.
He lived the dream.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Feel like a little adventure, Miss Hepburn.
Do your worst, Mr. Hughes.
I have heard some disquieting rumors about Mr. Hughes. I'd like to know everything there is to know.
See, I want to learn what pleases you.
Howard, you madman.
He thought nothing could stop him.
You have to be very careful.
My investigators have turned up a lot of dirt.
You want to go to war with me? You know, sometimes I get these crazy ideas about things that may not really be there.
I'll have him dragged here to Washington. I want to see the whites of his life.
We are in a street fight, and I'm not gonna lose. He owns Pan Am, he owns Congress, but he does not own the sky.
Beyond the wealth,
You want me to bribe senators?
I don't want them bribed, Jack. I want them bought.
something drove him.
You have called me a liar and a thief and a war property.
Beyond the legend,
Federal warrant.
Everything in these offices is the private property of Hughes Productions.
something consumed him.
They are touching things.
Beyond the genius,
The deadline is now completely unrealistic.
No, I want to see the blueprints again. Show me all the blueprints. Show me all the blueprints. Show me all the blueprints.
is the truth behind the man.
I'll get a doctor. No one sees him like this.
Sometimes I truly fear that I'm losing my mind. There's nothing there, Howard.
Will you marry me?
All right, thank you. Can we share poll, the next poll? Can we end the poll now? Thank you. Right, that's correct. So ambition, fame, and fortune. That is the overwhelming theme that is being portrayed in The Aviator. So in the film, it is quite clear that it captures the ambition, the brilliance, the audacity of Howard Hughes, whose life was very much in the public eye. He loved airplanes when he was a kid, and he's always wanted to build the fastest airplane ever. So his audacity, his unique vision for aviation actually led him to create Spruce Goose, the flying boat, right? In fact, at one time, he was actually very close to selling off his investment so that he can focus on developing his airplanes. So To be completely honest, I wouldn't be surprised if years from now, maybe 10 years, 5 years from now, people want to make a movie on, guess who? Elon Musk and his brilliance and his vision. So I wouldn't be surprised if that actually came up. Now, I'm going to share the next, I'm going to resume the rest of my presentation. So you'll see that these are some of the common themes that have been portrayed over and over again in aviation movies. Terrorism, fame and fortune, ambition, safety, heroism, freedom. Some movies are more overt. Some movies are less overt. All right, and this was what was shown just now. Okay. All right. Now, as we come to the end of the lecture, it's probably important for me to pay tribute to the very first aviation movie ever made in history. All right. So for me, I find this quite a very good depiction. So in Wings, if you have not heard of Wings, it is a 1927 American silent war film that was set during World War I. So when it was released, it was applauded for its technical realism. It was technical special effects, realism, and quite frankly, this film became the yardstick against all other future aviation films, simply because it had very, very realistic air combat sequences. So this film actually picked up a couple of awards. It won the first Academy Award for Best Picture, and it also won the Academy Award for Best Engineering Effects. So let me quickly share with you the clip.
Paramount presents Wings, the first movie to win an Academy Award for Best Picture. The story of two men who have gone to war and the girl they left behind. Starring Clara Bow, the It Girl, Gary Cooper, Buddy Rogers, and Richard Arlen. Wings is a whopping air spectacle, dominated by remarkable aerial stunts. Filled with action, shock, thrills, and tragedy. Twists of fate in love and war that catapults three people to their destinies. One of the greatest silent motion pictures ever made. Wings.
So you can see that back in those days in the 1920s, this was really an epic movie by the standards of the day. So in fact, in 1997, it was actually selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for its cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance. And as recent as May 2012, it was actually released in theaters to coincide with its 85th anniversary for a limited run. So films like Wings basically shaped and created legacy of future aviation movies to come, right? Just some trivia for you. There were hundreds of extras, and actually close to 300 pilots were involved in the filming, including pilots and planes of the United States Army Air Corps. It was filmed at Kelly Field in Texas. It was shot on location on a budget of $2 million. And the director of the day, William Willman, he was hired because he was the only director in Hollywood at that time who had World War I combat pilot experience. So there you go. And for those who still want more, okay, I hope that this has just been a short introductory lecture on you know, aviation through the lens of Hollywood. But if you really want more, I suggest that you look up this documentary, For the Love of Flight. You can easily find it. It's about 40 minutes. I'm not going to play it this lecture because I would like to save the last 5 minutes or so for questions, for Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Kim, for the presentation on aviation movies. I think we have quite a nice time going through those clips as well. I must admit, I have only watched a few of those movies. All right. So, thanks to all of you who are still here with us this lovely evening or afternoon for many of you. So now, okay, if you have any questions that you want to pose to either Miss Kim, on the movies, or you have any questions about our programs and admission questions, perhaps we are all here to help you with your questions. Yeah, I have put the chat is enabled actually. So if you have any questions, yeah, you can actually post them in the chat if you want to.
Hi, Kim, I just had a question for you, which I thought would be interesting maybe to tackle in terms of the portrayal of women characters in any aviation movie and the overwhelming abundance of male, role models in aviation-themed films.
Sure. So I think that in aviation themed movies, women have always been the victim, or they've always been portrayed as needing to be rescued. But I think I'm quite encouraged by recent movies like Amelia that I've included in the list of movies that I would like to share with my audience. So movies like Amelia, even movies like Captain Marvel, never mind she's fictitious, right? But in the MCU universe, she's real. So movies like this with a very strong female character only sends one message, and that is women have a role to play in aviation, and we should encourage more of that. So I think that popular culture is influenced by the current sentiments of the day. It's also quite reflective. It's also quite reflective of what people would like to see more. So who would want to make a movie that nobody goes to see too, right? So I think having strong female role models in movies is a very positive message to society, who is still deliberating between the role of females. So it was quite interesting because I had a quick conversation with my friend. She has 2 young daughters, and they were saying that they really enjoyed Captain Marvel. And I said, what is it that you like about Captain Marvel, right? She's not real. And they said, oh, because she can fly. And I said, okay, literally fly the plane. So, and they told me, wow, I want to be like Captain Marvel when I grow up. You see, so I think that's a very positive message that's being sent to young girls around the world, that yes, we do have a role for you. Never mind if it's fictitious. It's all good fun.
Thanks, Kim. I think you have one other question from Lim Kayang, who wants to know your opinions on the movie Return to Base. I'm not sure if you've watched it.
I'm sorry, I've never watched that movie.
I haven't heard of that one either.
Yeah. What do you think, in which way is the aviation movie line going? I think, for me, I'm not a producer, I'm a social scientist. So I'm not a script writer as well. Thanks for thinking so highly of me. But I think that right now, strong female models seem to be a recurring theme, not just in aviation movies, but also in Hollywood. I think that seems to be the kind of direction that's going. All right, so yeah, I think moving forward, I think audience are becoming very, very savvy. They value accuracy, they value realism. So I think somebody mentioned, and also technicalities. So I think that that is something that directors will also need to keep in mind when they are producing an aviation or space movie, for that matter. All right. I think that's it from me. I don't have anything else to add on, and I believe that please join us for the next few lectures. I really enjoyed today's session. I had a lot of fun putting this together, and I hope you had as much fun watching it. So I look forward to seeing you on campus one of these days. We still have 2 more lectures in the roadmap. So lecture 5, application aircraft design. And I can't remember the last one. Could we go back?
On management.
For management. So they are by my my very good friends, David and Ignatius. So please support their lectures as well. That's it from me. Bye.
Thanks so much, Kim. Really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone who joined us today evening for this session. We really thank you for taking the time out and being with us. We hope that you found it interesting. For those of you who've been joining us every session, you may have realized that we've picked very, very different topics, all related in some way to aviation and aerospace, just like our university. And we are trying to give you a taste of what different degree programs at our university are like. So this is more of a demo class, if you wish, if you were an actual student at our university. For those of you who want more classes, demo classes like these, we will be hosting more sessions in the upcoming months. So please feel free to join us or follow us on social media, and you should be able to see the notifications about our upcoming sessions and events. For those of you who want to apply to our university because you want to know more about our degree programs, about our admission process or application requirements, feel free again to email us at any time, and we are happy to talk to you, email you, and get you as much information as you need. I hope you found this session helpful, and goodbye from all of us. Kelvin.
All right, so we come to the end of this session today. So thanks once again to all of you who have been with us throughout this session. So I don't know what I don't want to repeat what PC has said, but you know how to reach us, where to find us. If you have any question for us, well, we'll be here, helping you with your questions. So yep. So thank you and goodbye, everyone. Bye.